My name is Joe McGiverin. I am chairman of the City Council's Finance Committee. Members of the committee that are present for this Zoom meeting is Councilor James Leahy,
Here.
Councilor Mike Sullivan, Councilor Peter Tallman,
Here.
and Councilor Dave Bartley. Other councilors are with us. I know Councilor Murphy is with us. And without video, I cannot tell you if anybody else is with us at the moment. We have a number of department heads and guests who are here to speak on various items, and some who will be joining us later. So if we could, just for the purpose of keeping order, just go to item number 1 real quick.
Make a motion to take item number 1 off the table.
So moved. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Item number 1, we need, we do have Bob Parent with us, but we need Marcus Guerrero. Marcus had a 6:15 meeting. He's going to be a little bit late, but we're also waiting for Councilor Murphy. I think I said he was here and I fibbed. Councilor Murphy has a 6:30 meeting with some state officials, and he's going to be joining us as soon as he can, and then we can do item number 1. So the chair would ask that it stays on the table until those parties join us.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Motion to take item number 2 off the table.
Second.
Made and seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. We thought this is from the schools. I learned earlier today that it's not from the schools, but it's actually from the library. I've yet to receive a hard copy of it. So I know Ryan has reached out very late to Maria Pagan. And at this point in time, Maria, I don't see you anywhere. We're going to have to hold off on this until hopefully Maria can join us and explain this grant to us.
All right,
So
make a
Chair would
motion
ask
to keep
we
it on
on
the.
the table for a moment.
Yeah. Yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 3, and there's some transfers that go with item number 3. That would be items 4, 5, 6, and I believe 7.
I make a motion to take off the table items 3 through 7.
Motion made
Second.
second to suspend the rules to take up items 3 through 7 as a package for the purpose of discussing the DPW renegotiated contract. On that motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We did receive a copy of the contract in a timely fashion. We also asked Mike and Ryan just helped us. I think everybody just got a copy of it. It is like 34 pages long, a digital copy emailed to you. But we have tonight is Mike McManus representing the financial transfers, which is always part of our responsibility when there's a new contract. Crystal Barnes is representing the city's legal department, which she'll explain who negotiated the contract and what she's going to attempt to do this evening. And we invited the president of the local 1459. Is the president with us? Is there anybody representing the local?
I don't see anybody, Joe.
Okay, Michael, have you any contact with them?
Nothing other about attending this meeting.
Okay, that's not your responsibility. We reached out
Yeah.
to them and did invite them, correct, Ryan? Ryan says correct.
Yeah, that's correct. So Crystal gave me their email addresses. I invited them to the meeting. I'm not sure. I have not heard back from them.
Okay, well, I think we can go forward. I'm not sure if we can complete tonight, but I do think that we have parties that are here to explain this to us, and then we can make a decision at the end of the explanation. Tradition is the mayor and only the mayor can negotiate a contract. Once it's negotiated, it's presented with any financial impacts, current and any financial impacts on future years to the city council for approval. If we disagree with the financial impacts, it essentially, and vote no, it essentially null and voids the contract and puts it back on the table to continue negotiations. So first we'll hear from the law department to explain what the differences are, both financial impacts, but any changes within the existing contract. And then we have Mike McManus here to explain where and why the transfers, both where they're coming from and where they're going to in terms of taking care of the contract. Crystal, are you ready to update us on this? Could you start just by telling us who negotiated for the mayor and who's not here tonight.
So this was kind of a dual effort. Mike McManus is really going to have most of your details here. This was still one of the contracts that Gina Perro negotiated before she left. Our outside counsel, Russell, just kind of did some of the last minute paperwork as far as incorporating the settlement agreement into the actual contract at the end. So Mike McManus, Hector, our personnel director, and Gina Perro from my office actually did all the negotiations on this. This is actually a really old contract. It was just getting signatures, getting the funding. This was supposed to go through actually last fiscal year. Thankfully, we still happen to have the funding to do the retros out of the DPW current budget. So as you'll see, which I think is also provided to you, the transfers are all coming out of DPW's budget. There isn't anything coming out of general or anything like that. So this was all something that they did within their own budget for the retros. But to be quite honest, Mike McManus is going to have all your details for you on this contract.
Crystal, do you know the percentage raise and any financial impacts in general?
I am trying to dig that up for you now.
It's 1.5% per year retro to last fiscal year for salary increases. And there is a $100 longevity increase that takes place the beginning of next fiscal year.
Mike, how many years?
3 years.
Starting with the last fiscal year?
Last fiscal year, this fiscal year, and then next fiscal year.
Could you, for the record, identify the last fiscal year when you say last?
Last fiscal year 20.
20, okay, thank you. And the 1.5% is to the base. Is it anything else besides the base pay?
No.
And you know the total dollar figure for this year?
Yeah, so Tanya had sent that out recently. So the total additional costs to fiscal year 21 is $43,373.04.
And would you know the future years, or is that being calculated?
That's still being calculated.
And this 43,373.04 is what these transfers represent, or do I understand that some of this was pre-budgeted? I think we were told this during the budget hearings that some of this was already in your budget.
Correct. So I had budgeted for this current fiscal year in this fiscal year's budget. So fiscal year 21 includes these increases. What the transfers are for the retros for last fiscal year.
So we'll get a calculation from the auditor a little bit more precise, but fiscal 21 is all set. We're actually doing fiscal 20.
The transfers are for fiscal 20, yes.
Okay. And I know the auditor is not with us tonight. She was not invited, but I will let her know that we're going to need the language for doing something for a prior fiscal year. It's actually 2 votes by the council when we take this up. But for purposes of tonight, let's proceed with Crystal. Besides the increase, is there any other changes in the language of the contract that you know of?
I mean, the settlement agreement was provided to all of you. It's kind of lengthy with just a lot of minute things. Again, I'm going to defer to Mike for anything major that he should point out to you. Unfortunately, I just don't.
Yeah,
this wasn't something that I dealt with. So I'm here to kind of answer questions.
And
but
I understand that, and we appreciate you being here. And we're just trying to get things, it's not just for us, it's also for the public to hear.
Oh, absolutely. No, I don't blame you for asking the questions. I just,
But I understand when you didn't negotiate the contract, it's kind of hard to summarize it. Mike, is there anything besides what we're about to go through with the transfers that you know of? Any changes in, language in the contract that
Sure.
changes the scope of work with the employees?
Yes. So for the job classifications, the parking control officer was bumped up a grade, and that is to take on additional responsibility with the parking garage maintenance, maintenance of meter heads out in the street. And we'd like to start getting into more, I want to say aggressive collection for past due parking violations. But what he's seen is that people who have leased vehicles from out of state, what they'll do is they won't pay their parking tickets. There's no way for the city to collect those through the excise tax, and they're considered scofflaws. So we're exploring ways of trying to collect that, not through a booting type device, but not a boot. But it would be more responsibility for the parking control officer. So he would bump up a grade. And it was a nominal change in his pay, but it's still something to reflect the fact that he or she will have more responsibility.
Do you know the grade it was and the grade it goes to?
I believe it was a PW 16 and it went to a PW 17. There's an addition for use of a Class A license. So all of our guys have the Class B. Well, not all of them, but the drivers have a Class B license. Some have a Class A license. And if they were to use that Class A license for their DPW duties, they would get a 75 cents per hour increase while they're using that license.
Could you give us the definition of Class A versus Class B, please?
Sure, it's a weight class of the vehicle. And DPW, the only time we use a Class A license is when we're towing our trailers with equipment. So I would say if historically we probably needed it for 8 to 20 hours a year, if that. So there isn't a big budgetary impact for this change in the union contract.
Is the 75 cents only when they're using their Class A or when they get their Class A?
It's only when they use their Class A, and it's paid in a 1 hour minimum. So if they use it to move something for 15 minutes, they'll get 1 hour extra at 75 cents.
Thank you. Anything else?
There's pre-cancer screenings. So they may use 4 hours of paid time on an annual basis for the purpose of undergoing pre-cancer screenings, such as lung, colon, breast, prostate, skin, thyroid. And it can't be taken in blocks of time. So it's not like they could schedule an appointment one day and then another month have another hour appointment. It's health and wellness, a 4 hour chunk of time to do pre-cancer screenings.
I think that's a very good gesture in these days and times, and also keep our workforce healthy too, hopefully. Anything else?
There is a codification of the cell phone and earbud policy, just to put that into the contract. And there was an addition in the contract where if an employee is out on workman's comp or the income replacement benefit, the IRB is a benefit that the employees have if they hurt themselves or have a medical situation that's not work related, that they can be out of work and have a portion of their salary paid. Where if an employee is out for workman's comp or the IRB, that we can go out and hire temporary laborers to fill their slots. So one of the things that we struggle with at DPW is people out on workman's comp in the IRB, and when they're on trash, we have to supplement those guys with people from parks or the highway department. And then when people on trash or recycling are out on vacation or sick time or for other reasons, since trash and recycling come first, it comes at the loss of highways and the parks. So what this would do is allow us to hire temporary workers who are paid labor, and they would essentially work on the back of the trash truck. We would have a driver and then this temporary labor, and in a way that would it would really help out our highways and parks department. So we wouldn't have to sacrifice those employees for trash and recycling, and we might be able to get more highways and parks related work completed.
What? That's a what? You just put a rose in 1229 to get your thing done. What do you mean I can do?
Michael, any other changes before we get into the transfers?
They agreed to the drug and alcohol enforcement policy. It was a policy that was on the books but not enforced, and now we'll be able to start enforcing it again. And then there were other changes to the language, as Crystal had alluded to try to incorporate civil service type language into our contract with regards to seniority and promotions and overtime.
Okay, that about it?
That is about it.
Two things. Crystal, watch out. I think we have a new attorney moving over towards you.
This one, as you can see from the language, the settlement agreement, it's much lengthier than normal settlement agreements we've had. Usually they're about a page, maybe a page and a half. This one's really detailed.
Well, mine went down to 44 pages. Our problem is we get the new language, but if we don't have the old language in front of us, we can't compare. That's why it's helpful to summarize it this way.
That is true. I mean, we can certainly provide old contracts for you if that's helpful. I think the 44 pages also incorporates the full contract. So not only do we have the settlement agreement, but then you actually have to put whatever we've agreed to in that settlement agreement into the actual contract. So that's why it's 44 pages, because a lot of that is like the full contract that just continues to get amended every year.
Okay. Understood. To members of the committee and the city council, would you like to pause and ask questions of Crystal or Mike now before we go into the transfers of how to pay for this? Or would you rather just wait until we do the transfers?
Do the transfers. Do the
Transfers?
transfers.
Okay. So we'll just go in order. And again, as I think Michael explained, these transfers are for the last prior fiscal year, which is fiscal 20. In the budget already is the money to cover these increases for the budget that we are currently working with. As we all know, COVID's played a lot of havoc with it, and we're in the ending the first quarter without any final numbers from the state. But that's for another day. So, Mike, if we can go in our order, if it works for you, the first transfer up, I believe, is, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like item 4, which is $10,000 from the HMEO to the temporary seasonal. Is that part of the contract?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain what HMEO is first, and then what you're anticipating using? Why 10,000?
So it's refuse HMEO. So we have heavy motor equipment operators in refuse and parks and highways. These are the guys with the CDL-B license. What this is a transfer from the refuse HMEO category to a temporary seasonal category of $10,000. And that $10,000 would be a starting point for the temporary workers that we would hire when any DPW worker is out on workman's comp or the IRB. So if let's say a highway person is out on comp or the IRB, the way this new contract is written, we would be able to hire a temporary worker to work at DPW on refuse while that person is out on workman's comp or the IRB. And that would free up one of the refuse guys to go over to highways.
Our first question is the $10,000 surplus in that line item, and why is it surplus 3 months into the fiscal year?
So it is surplus because we've had people out on workman's comp and the IRB on refuse, HMEO. We've also had guys quit, or no one's gotten fired, but we've had guys quit. So that position has been open. So when people are on the IRB or workman's comp, they don't hit DPW's budget. So that money stays in the budget.
Understood.
And if the position's not filled, then obviously we're not incurring expenses.
But without changes, you anticipate minus the $10,000, you'll still have enough to get through the fiscal year?
Oh yeah.
People.
No, absolutely.
Okay. Questions?
I don't anticipate coming back to you asking for more money before the end of the fiscal year to balance these, at least more money from free cash or stabilization. I might need to move some money to an overtime line item if I think if that other order goes through that Linda had filed.
Understood. Any questions on item number 4? Understood. Item number 5.
Joe, can you see the blue hands up or no?
Oh, wait a minute. My apologies. I don't know who was up first, so I'm going to go in.
Mike was.
Councilor Tomlin first. He raised his hand. You're up first, Peter?
Yeah.
We'll go by seniority, but Councilor Tomlin.
Okay, thank you. Mike, I'm not, you mentioned some people are out of work. Approximately how many people are on workman's comp and how many people actually left the job?
So workman's comp, people come in and out, but we currently have 2 people on workman's comp. We have 1 person on the IRB. And then there was 3 people who left the department this year. 3 people who left the department this year. They've been backfilled at this point in time. But we still have the 2 people out on workman's comp and the 1 person out on IRB. All of those employees are in the highway department. Up until last week, we had 3 people on the IRB. So we've really, workman's comp and the IRB have put a crunch on DPW staffing. So if this were to go through today, hypothetically, right, we could have 3 of these temporary workers at DPW tomorrow. And that means there would be 3 more people over on highways. And that would, and you know, that 3 people is, it's a patching crew. It's a berm crew. It's that crew that we just haven't had that we've needed in order to do work.
Mike, our administrator didn't tell us, but I think we lost Councilor Tomlin right after he asked the question.
He's on. I see him.
He's just connecting back on.
Oh.
Peter, are you with us?
Oh.
Okay, we're gonna give Peter a chance to get back in. Ryan, let us know when Peter's back in officially.
Okay.
Mike, is there anything else to that question? We may have to revisit it in a second.
No.
Councilor Barley has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Mike, where in the budget is this going to be accounted for?
Is what going to be?
Okay, well, how about the refuse heavy temporary seasonal? Where's that? Where's the line item?
There is a line item that's created in Munis. It's been in Munis, but it hasn't been funded forever, so it doesn't show up in the budget book. If you give me a minute, I can track down the so the temporary seasonal, it would be 14301-51240.
And this would be in, let me just see, where are we here? So you see, there's so many different lines on this. It's not Department of Recreation, it's not Department of Parks.
It's refuse recycling.
Refuse, it's the refuse recycle, it's got refuse recycling. Okay, I've got to find that in the budget book, and then what you're telling me is that going forward, what in future budgets we're going to see 51240 temporary seasonal under refuse recycling. If I can ever find the page, is that what you're saying, Mike?
Correct.
All right, let me just go to the table of contents. Maybe that'll help. But okay, wow. Okay, and then just to your concern, is this an unusually high number of workers' comp and injured? Is it whatever what's the phrase, Mike, again, for workers' comp and
the IRB, income replacement benefit?
And did you define that for us?
So it's a benefit that the employees have should they become injured or unable to have work capacity due to unwork related reasons. So that's if, let's say a guy's playing catch with his kid and it breaks his leg. You know, he's not going to be able to come into work for a while. It wasn't a work related injury. Using the IRB, he'll have a portion of his salary paid. There's a 6-month window that they can be on the IRB before they have to make a decision whether or not they can come back to work. And, you know, it's not up to them to make that decision. There's physical therapy, there's doctor's visits all along that have to happen. So that's the gist of the IRB.
And did you tell me how many employees are currently listed under that heading?
Currently 1. At the end of last week, we had 3.
And how many are on workers' comp right now?
2.
And theoretically, can you be on workers' comp and IRB at the same time?
No, because workers' comp is specifically due to a work-related injury.
Yeah, I just want to hear you say it. Okay.
If they are, I'd like to know, because that's not what it's for.
No, I'm not alleging that. I just want to get the definitions right. So I just want to make that clear. And then the, okay, so 2 are out. Well, that doesn't seem terribly unusual. And then for the IRB, 3 were, and now it's down to 1. And it's unwork related reasons. Okay. And, all right. And I don't want to go into the reasons now, though I suppose I could. But how long were they out for unwork related reasons? The 3. And now it's down to 1.
One of them passed away.
Oh. Well, that, okay.
So we're
He's
going.
a good man too, and his wake was yesterday. Great man.
He will be missed.
Oh, for John. Okay, so John O'Neill was on IRB. Oh, I see. Okay, all right. Okay, so all right, there's that one. Yep.
Another one was out for 3 months, 3-4 months, with a hand injury, and another one has been out for about a month.
With what?
Back, non-work related back.
Okay, and you're saying that if you have the $10,000 now, hypothetically, you have temporary employees ready that already been vetted and
So
the temporary nature of the jobs are posted, or I mean, you said you could hire them tomorrow. So how does that work?
No, I was saying if, hypothetically, what we would be doing is contracting with a company called People Ready out of Springfield. They provide temporary labor to people looking for temporary labor. Cities of Springfield and West Springfield have used People Ready in the past to supplement their workforces. Springfield used them for yard waste collection with refuse. So we would have a contract with them, and if we knew we had a need, we could send them a request, and they would fill it the next day. It wouldn't be a city employee. The city wouldn't be paying any benefits. People Ready would be paying the benefits. And because it is, an outside contractor providing the labor, that's the reason why we negotiated with the union to have this as a part of the contract. It's defined in the contract. These people would specifically work on refuse and refuse only, that we wouldn't be using them to fill potholes or do berms or paint crosswalks or put up handicap parking signs.
Okay, refuse only. Okay. Okay, that leads to other. So People Ready. How do we pay them? Do we have a contract with them, or how does that work? How do we pay them?
We don't have a contract with them because, this transfer would be money to set up the contract. But we don't have a contract with them at this time. We've been discussing the possibility of a contract and, what the terms of the agreement would be. So
okay, so city council has to approve the contract, Mike. Why am I hearing an echo? Is there does somebody have a TV on or something, or what's the?
It's Ryan. Who is the phone number that's in the bottom of the screen? They should go on mute. So I think they're playing the TV.
Yeah, just.
To the person with the telephone number 413-533-8348, can you just identify yourself?
Well, just can you mute him, Ryan?
Yeah.
Well, we should also know who's on.
Well,
we don't know if it's are they from the union.
Sorry, it's me, Sandy Smith.
It's our treasurer. Welcome, Sandy.
Treasurer. My apology. I'm watching it and listening to you.
Yeah,
That's
Sandy,
okay,
can you just turn
Sandy.
down your TV or
That's okay,
something?
as long as you mute yourself while you do that.
Or turn your
Okay,
TV
no
down.
problem.
Thanks, Sandy.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, that's,
So Dave, we don't have a contract. We're not really anywhere near signing a contract with People Ready. And if it has to go before city council, then we'll definitely send it before city council. You know,
well, it definitely does, but I guess what you know, I'm not opposed to any of this. I'm just trying to get an understanding of it, Mike. So, because you're saying to us, at least what I'm hearing you say is the 10,000 is going to be used to hire employees, but now what I'm hearing, that's what I thought you were going to say, but now I'm hearing you say that 10,000 is really to engage in an agreement with People Ready, and they're going to funnel the employees to the city of Holyoke. So I'm just wondering, how does, yeah, I guess, I mean, that's what it sounds like, Mike. It sounds like it's for an agreement with People Ready. It's not necessarily for an agreement to have somebody come on board. I mean, so you tell me, Mike. I guess I need some direction on this from you. Are we with the 10,000 is going to be what, held in abeyance until we come up with an agreement with People Ready, or do we have some kind of a temporary agreement with them that will allow them to start funneling employees our way that, you know, we need to get on the trucks?
no, we don't. And I guess I should walk back earlier when I said, you know, tomorrow, if this was in place, we'd be able to do all this great stuff. We wouldn't be able to do that tomorrow because we don't have an agreement with People Ready. The union contract hasn't been approved by city council. But if the union contract is approved and we get an approved contract with People Ready, it would allow us to take on temporary workers from People Ready.
All right. Okay.
To act as labor.
I think that better explains it for me, but I just have one, because this is an internal transfer. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, Mike. I just want to understand it better. So if is it my understanding then that the $10,000 would be sort of held within that newly created, not newly created, but newly funded, whatever that account number is, and then then until such time as we have an agreement with People Ready, you would sort of leave that money right there in 51240. Is that my understanding, Mike?
Right, and we would open up a PO with People Ready, and then as we needed temporary labor, they would send them over, and we would keep track of the expenses, and the expenses would be paid out of that line.
No, I got you. And the union green lighted this?
They did, yeah.
Thank you.
Counselor Sullivan, still have a hand up?
He does not, Joe.
Okay, he had it up earlier. I just didn't know.
Yep.
Any other questions on item number 4? Okay, let's go to item number 5. We took all these off the table, so I'm just going to read it. The transfer of $5,027 from Parking Control Officer 622, Parking Longevity 100. The HMEO account line item again, 1,273. Parks Maintenance Man, 1,805. Parks Maintenance Craftsman, $597. Parks Overtime, $230, and Parks Longevity, $400. Mike, can you explain how this is related to the contract?
So all of these transfers from and then transfers to would be to cover the cost of the retro, last fiscal year's retro.
That I got.
Now
I don't get the overtime and the longevity though.
So the retro would also apply to any overtime worked on the previous fiscal year.
They would get the increase.
They would get the increase there.
Sorry, I wasn't thinking.
The longevity, that is a complete boneheaded move on my part when I was creating this transfer. I was trying to rush through it, and I forgot that longevity is not retro. Longevity doesn't take into effect until next fiscal year. So these transfers for longevity wouldn't get paid out to the employees. What'll happen is it'll just sit in that line until the end of the fiscal year. If that makes any sense.
I understand, yes. We have two ways we could do this, but yes, for purpose of the discussion, that does make sense. And on the each of these individual line items is the 1.5% increase?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on item number 5?
Yeah, I mean, explain the
Dr.
part
Bartley?
longevity. I mean, explain that. What do you mean it's going to sit there?
So, Councilor Bartley, when I was pulling together the transfer, I had there's two union contracts that I work on, the UFCW and the UPSEU. The UPSEU is the supervisors union for DPW. Their longevity would be retro to last fiscal year. So when I was creating the transfer for the UFCW, I had in my head that their longevity was also retro to last fiscal year, but it's not. So I put those longevity transfers in error.
No, I copy that. But when you say it's going to sit, so do we need to make the transfer now or not?
If I could chime in, we have two ways to do this. We cannot amend the transfer. We have to vote it up or down as it is written in front of us. We could ask for a replacement transfer for the full city council meeting minus the longevity, if that so pleases members of the committee.
Okay.
And quite frank, though, because it's a prior fiscal year, Mike, we may have to do that anyways because they're closing up the books on that last year. And if this isn't something to be paid, it'll just go. I'd have to defer to the auditor, but we may want to do it that way to be a cleaner. But either way, it can be done.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on item number 5? Councilor Leahy.
Just quickly, just go over the rules of how we were paying for prior year bills.
Well, prior year expenses, typically it's a prior year bill that we see this with, has to be approved in addition to where the money is coming from. So, because that language is not in these 4 items, we just need that language added that we're actually voting on a prior year.
Okay. Good.
Prior expense.
Right. Okay.
It's unusual to be a personnel expense because,
right,
as explained earlier, the contract was negotiated last year, but didn't get to us in a timely fashion.
No, these guys deserve their money. These are some of the hardest working people in the city of Holyoke.
If no other questions on 5, item number 6. Crystal, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, you had mentioned that earlier about the need for the language for the prior year, but I reached out to Tanya because it sounded odd to me too, because we've done retros before. She said it's not necessary in this case. We're not paying a bill. We're just doing an appropriation.
I might disagree with the auditor slightly because I understand we're not paying the bill. And Councilor Leahy's question, I think, was right along those lines. But retro into a prior fiscal year is not doable. I'm trying to be nice. I think we need the language to make it doable. But we can get that answer before we vote on this in the full city council. Yes, Crystal?
I have no doubt. I'm just, like I said, I asked her already. She said no. but I'll leave that to a more thorough
Oh,
research.
if you could answer, I kind of posed that as a question now. If you can answer my statement. Councilor Bartley, your hand is up.
Yeah, just in 5, Mike, so 6 and 7, I see the from and the to. 5, I just see the from. So is this order going to be amended to put in writing where I heard the retro, I heard that part, but I just want clarification on that. And the other part, Mike, just when I was doing the math here, I was just wondering, I thought I heard you say that this is for the total transfers were for retros totaling 43,374.
No.
Did I miss you? I guess I heard that wrong. So what is this?
Bear with me 1 second. That's the impact to this fiscal year. The total additional cost of fiscal year 21 is 43,373.04. The retro for fiscal year 20 is $20,030.94. And then to answer your other question about the two is in item 7.
Yeah, in 6 and 7, I see the 2. In 5, I don't.
It's all one big. When I sent it over to Tanya, it was all one long from a bunch of accounts and then to a bunch of accounts. So I think 5 and 6 should be together.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. It adds up.
Ryan, are you with us? Ryan?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Ryan, on each of these items, 4, 5, 6, and 7, will you email us the hard copy that you have? Will you email us digital copies of the entire transfer, entire language?
Yeah.
Because we can't go by the agenda if the agenda doesn't have the whole thing written on it.
I believe it does have the whole thing. It's just worded a little differently, but yeah, I can send it to you.
Well, if it's worded different, it's not the whole thing, because Councilor Bradley's making a good point. We're not clearly seeing, we're seeing where it's coming from, but where's it going to?
I think it was an issue with is there a new way that agenda items get entered into the agenda?
Yes, there is.
And I think that's where Tanya was running into a problem. So item 4 is a standalone transfer. It was its own transfer request.
We understand that. We're good with 4.
And then 5, 6, and 7 were all a separate single transfer request, where all of the froms added up to all of the twos.
So what I read for 5 is all from. When I read 6, it's going to be all from, and then it doesn't become a 2 until the end of 7. Is that what you're saying? I don't know if you can see what we're reading.
And Joe, I have the hard copies right here in my hand. I don't know if that's helpful to you.
I'm not sure either till we see them, Ryan, but did you hear what we're discussing?
Yeah,
we're trying to distinguish between the from and the to.
Yeah, I thought that was listed off in the agenda. It says from, and then so say
if
to.
You heard
and
what we said, items 5 and 6 are nothing but froms.
There's a 2 there, Joe.
Oh, 5 has a from.
To 6.
Doesn't have a 2.
No, 5 and 6
have,
go into, yeah.
Right, 7 has the 2.
And 6 has a 2.
Yep.
Okay.
If you take 5 and 6, yeah, if you take 5 and 6 too, it goes right into that 6 item total, I believe.
Okay.
Add these up, I guess.
I think 5 and 6 should be added. The froms to the 2s and 6.
All right, let me read 6 and we'll go right into that discussion if that makes sense to everybody. The amount in 6 is $21,282 from Parking Control Officer, $14,001, Parks Maintenance Man, $7,281, to, now this is where we get the into, the Automotive Equipment Operator Repairman, $1,323, Automotive Equipment Maintenance Man, $638, Auto EVT Mechanic, $883, Auto Police Fleet Mechanic, $414, Auto Overtime, $175, and the longevity being $200. Refuse HMEO, $4,949. Refuse HMEO Recycler, $11,515. Refuse Overtime, $585, and another longevity for $600. I believe some people are calculating to see if we're making sense here, but Mike,
Yes.
anything on this item, or are we combining both these items?
I mean, you're combining both of those items. If you look at item 6, has from Parking Control Officer 14001. But if you look at item 7, that also has from Parking Control Officer 1951. So, but essentially, that's what it is. It's she's breaking up the froms for item 6 into all of the 2s in item 6, and she's breaking up the froms in item 7 to all of the 2s in item 7.
This gives whole new meaning to the phrase new map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Councilor Bartley, you have your hand up. Would you like
Oh, no, sorry, let me,
Okay. Councilor Tomlin?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out the 5. I mean, number 5, where's that? Is that combining with one of the other orders? Because they're all from. There's nothing to in number 5. So that's where my confusion is.
That's exactly what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, 5's
And
confusing.
it doesn't really add up either when you take, if you put it into number 6, it just doesn't add up.
I'm gonna
If we could,
suggest
yeah, go ahead, Joe.
if we go forward tonight. I'm a little concerned that the union president or union rep is not with us this evening.
Right.
But I'm going to suggest that we finish our questions and answers for what we can. We can, one, go forward to the city council, but ask for replacement orders that make sense. Or 2, we can also table this and get the auditor in for the next meeting, which I can't promise is going to happen before the city council meeting.
Okay.
I can try.
Joe, was the union rep, was that person invited?
Oh, shit.
Yes, Mike gave Ryan both the president, I believe, and the vice president's name, and Ryan told us earlier he did email them.
Okay.
Joe, so I'm just a little bit, so just so you know, if you guys are going off the, what I copied and pasted in this side here, if I just can speak for a moment.
No, that's a race to ride.
Yeah,
It got cut off because there's a limit on how much I can put on there. So that it's possible that, but if you can go on like your computer and look at it, it should be all hopefully there in the correct form.
Are you
Number
talking about
5,
the chat room?
What was that, Joe?
You said, is it in the chat room? The
Not
chat room?
anymore.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat, but it kind of got messed up the way it copied and pasted in there. But like the way I have these orders here and the way I believe it's posted on the website is like, it has the where it's from. I'm pretty sure, at least. I'm totally up to you, but I might be able to lend some. I have the orders right in front of me, so if you do have any questions, I can give you.
What we're reading, because we're not getting copies of this, because we're not sitting in the chambers with a jacket in front of us,
Right.
with all these hard copies. We're reading the agenda item.
when you say you need another, well, I mean, okay, so on the,
Hey, Marcos.
Marcos,
Marcos,
Thank
put
you.
on mute. Thank you.
sorry about that.
No
that's
worries.
okay. Ryan, you understand?
Yeah. I just, because I have the orders in front of me, I might be able to give some clarity, but it's up to you.
Yeah, but Ryan, I'm reading out. So first of all, I can't find the agenda on the website, and what I'm reading off of is the email that you sent to me prior to the meeting. And as Peter said, number 5, it's all twos. You have that right?
Yeah, let me just take a quick look, okay?
I'm sorry, it's all froms. There's
Oh,
no
from,
twos.
yeah, from.
It's kind of confusing. All froms, no twos.
Would it be
Okay,
helpful
well,
if
yeah,
I went through the,
And Joe, if we could also, I think we should be very careful not having the union president with us.
I
discussing
agree.
this. Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
not. I'm
I know
not
that-
even sure if I feel comfortable doing this.
I mean, we can't force them to come, but I agreed. I'm not comfortable myself. But I can make us, I think we have 2 options here. First of all, on what we see in item number 7, 4, 5, 6, and 7, are there any more questions other than what we're talking about? They're for percentage retroactive pay raises for the hours that were worked last year for the employees that have this retro coming. Correct, Mike?
correct?
Okay. And now we just got to get a better clarity as to the dollars we get. I think we know where the dollars are coming from. It's where they're
Yes.
going.
Yeah,
Huh?
and I would prefer if we could do a revised transfer and get rid of
I'm
the
convinced
longevity.
now we're
agree.
going to have to do that no matter what. The question is, do we do it for the next meeting or do we table this and do it for another committee meeting? Councilor Bartley.
I'm gonna vote to table it, but I just wanted to, thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm not the brightest bulb, but I finally went ahead and proved all the numbers. So they all tie out, fortunately, in the 6 and in 7. So the froms and the twos foot at the bottom to the penny.
Oh, good.
So that's the good news on that. Okay, so we know that they the same amount on item 6, the from the 21,282. That's the same amount that's from 2 into from into 2. I'm sorry, from into 2. And the same way in item, sorry, it's like I thought, not the brightest bulb. Item 7, same thing. The from at 12,514 footed to the same amount in the 2, 12,514. So I can, and I triple check those numbers now. So they tie out. So that's a hallelujah moment. Thank you.
Okay. So any other questions before we entertain what we're going to do? Would someone like to make that motion?
Well, Joe, just one suggestion. I could do this if you want. I can take that item 5 exactly how it was written in the agenda because I was sent that agenda. I could copy and paste it and I could put it in the Zoom chat if you guys wanted to take a second look at just copy and paste it straight from the agenda that was
That is helpful, Ryan, but there's 3 problems here. One is we don't have union representation to listen to what we're talking about and to hear from them as to how they perceive what they negotiated. 2 is we have a lot of confusion about the way these orders are written. And 3, we have to eliminate the longevity because it's a retro year and it makes no sense to put it into a line item from last year when those books are being closed out. It could just be stolen by the outside auditors for all those grants that aren't balancing, if you know what I mean, everybody.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna table this, but thank you. Councilor Bartley?
Does the chair want to table item 4? Because I think that's a separate issue. So I might suggest that we table 3, 5, 6, and 7.
I second David.
I mean, that's fine. But Mike, are you gonna use seasonal help unless the contract passes?
No.
No.
All right, so maybe
Oh.
we should just table it.
So I'll make a motion to table 3 through 7.
7, second.
Motion made and second to table items 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 As you know, we do not discuss the motion to table. All those in favor, please
Aye.
raise your hand. Passes unanimous 5-0. Thank you.
I'd make a motion to take number 8 off the table.
Second.
Motion made and second to take number 8 off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. This is in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. The City Council accepts the provisions of Fiscal 21, Fiscal 22 Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Act, known as the MVP Action Grant. On that motion, it's off the table. Joining us from the Conservation Commission is our new conservation officer. And I'm gonna blow this because I practiced all day. But Yanni Glowpower.
Glowgower.
You're close.
How'd I do?
Yoni Glowgower.
Glowgower.
Yoni,
Rhymes with pony.
thank you for joining us this evening. We did have a chance to chat earlier. What we'd like to know is the total amount. You have given us a lot of information, which I know everybody received, but we wanted to be on record for people who are watching us. The amount of the grant, how any city match, whether it's in kind or dollars, is there, and then your explanation of how you're going to use the grant.
Oh, totally. Can I start with a brief explanation of the grant program for
Please,
the public and the committee?
please, yes.
So MVP Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness is a state grant program. It's pretty new. It gives municipalities funding for climate resiliency projects, especially focusing on long-term. So back in 2018, to qualify for MVP designation, city staff and community stakeholders, they had to conduct a series of workshops to identify hazards and vulnerabilities. That was the MVP planning grant. And as a result of those discussions, the group that was assembled came up with a list of top 5 actions for Holyoke to combat these risks. And among the 5 was to, I quote, develop a tree management, maintenance, and planting program with appropriate species. So basically there's 4 interrelated projects in this grant, but it's basically a grander vision, I guess, of that very idea, that we do some planning around urban forestry. So total grant amount is $130,034. That'll be provided by the state, and it's broken into the 4 different projects as listed on the action grant scope template that I provided to the committee. There'll be $51,131 to develop the main plan at the core of this project. We're calling it the Urban Forest Equity Plan to reflect that we're going to really prioritize getting trees in parts of the city where they don't exist currently. There's going to be a regulatory review process that'll be conducted by PVPC as a public sector agency. Those staff hours will come to $23,085. We're finally going to get a street tree inventory, at least for the downtown core of Holyoke. Those services will cost $50,000. We're also going to do a spin-off project in partnership with the Wisteria Hearst Museum. We're going to create a historic trees of Holyoke walking tour map. And that combined, oh, I left the bottom off. That project's going to continue into fiscal year, requires a 25% match from municipalities. Making do with what we can in Holyoke. Our match is going to be provided completely with in-kind staff hours. I've already reached out, I didn't write this grant application in a vacuum. I consulted with my colleagues in the DPW, Office of Planning and Economic Development, and Wisteria Hearst Museum. Everyone's going to be pitching in some hours in the development of that planning process. So I made sure that that can be done with within the existing schedules of various staff members and myself. Was there any question?
How many hours do you have to commit? How many staff hours?
I don't have that in front of me. It's based on average. It's based on hourly wage of different staff members, which is different for all different departments.
But you feel it'll cover the match, the in-kind match?
Yeah, yeah, we did the math on that. There was a big spreadsheet.
And when you said the prior grant or the prior, I think you said grant, you know, but is it when we got all the trees that we planted? Does it connect with that?
Yeah, you're talking about the municipal nursery?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a different grant. That was a DCR Urban Forest Challenge grant. So different program, but again, like we have a lot of interesting resources in Holyoke related to urban forestry. And we really feel that these planting materials will help us weave all those together. So, you know, we have a lot of trees left in the nursery. I'm trying to work with the community and get them planted in partnership with DPW. But, you know, with like a planning process, we could probably be much more effective.
Okay. I see blue hands, so I'm going to recognize people. I apologize. I don't see when they go up, but we'll go in order. Councilor Tallman.
Yep. Yanni, when does the, you stated you got till 2022. When does the effective grant start if we vote on it? The work start, the basic of the grant.
Immediately, contract's already been signed. I've got some RFQs in the draft phase. We're going to be hiring a few contractors for this. I think I have the first deliverable mid-October was the target. But I think if I understand correctly, the full city council will have to vote on this. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then you mentioned 2022, so it has to be completed by 2022?
Most of the items in the grant need to be completed by the end of fiscal year 21.
Okay.
There's just part of the historic trees of Holyoke that we'll have into part of 2022.
Okay. So you only got, I mean, if most of the grant, you only have about 8 months, 9 months to get it finished.
Yeah.
Does that give you ample time to do what you have to do with this grant?
Yeah, we believe so. I worked a long time on the schedule with Mike McManus, actually, and a lot of these projects we're going to try to do somewhat simultaneously. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilor Barley.
Yep, I'm here. Okay, Yanni, hello.
Hi.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Okay, I do see. I'm going to make a point of just 1 minute, but I just want to look at something real fast. So I do see the match calculation in here. Just a couple of questions. What you just to clarify? You did not write this grant?
I did.
You did write. Okay, sorry about that. Is there a reason why why are we using the Stereohearse instead of the Historic Commission if we're going to have historic tours?
When I discussed this with Kate Preisler, we talked about the fact that there's a Wisteria Hearst app with existing walking tours for Holyoke, and we felt that this would fit in well with the existing features that they have for that.
Yeah, did you ask the Historic Commission? Did she bring up the Historic Commission? Because they do walking tours all the time.
Yeah. No, I didn't talk to them.
Not your fault. But you know we have an Historic Commission, right?
Yeah. It's in the Office of Planning and Economic Development now.
Yeah, that's the same office you're in, isn't it?
No, conservation is its own.
You're not under, oh, okay, good. That's okay. That's
I'm a one-person lonely office.
right next door to theirs, but okay. So, all right. So we use Hysteria Hearst for historical tours. We use Historic Commission. All right. That's just an eyebrow raiser, but that's just me. The other one, we have an ordinance on the books. Councilor Leahy and I filed this a couple years ago. I'm not really sure how great a turnaround we're getting on these things, but we're gonna, every time these come up, I'm gonna say it again.
Yeah.
You realize that there's an ordinance. Well, I'm gonna tell you because I don't think you realize it. There is an ordinance on the books that says if we accept the grant, that you are gonna provide some kind of a report to the city council with outputs or income and outputs.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, the ordinance is there, so Miss Attorney Barnes can direct you to the ordinance. She can get you a copy of it, and
Okay.
you can have that handy and attach that to each and every grant so that we can maybe get some kind of a, I don't know, an annual report on how this thing is coming along. That would be that'd be wonderful. And just so I'm clear, this street tree I mean, is this grant limited to any particular blocks in the city? Any like CDBG type blocks, or is this citywide?
It's citywide. I emphasized in the narrative of the application that we'd be focusing on the 4 downtown neighborhoods. So the Flat, South Holyoke, Downtown, and Churchill. But the plan will apply to the city of Holyoke as a whole.
Okay, and you know, we had your predecessor had a pretty big report about the tree canopy in Holyoke and worked with, and it's particularly focused on the downtown neighborhoods, which is all well and good. And they did quite a bit of extensive tree planting with DCR. I believe it's well over 1,000 trees now.
Mm-hmm.
So you're aware of that, right?
Yeah, of course. I used to work in that program.
Oh, okay, great. All right, and then you're also aware of the tree nursery that we started in this body several years ago, and it just so happened that nothing to do with us. Maybe Mr. Smith picked up on it at the time, but the Urban Forest Challenge Grant couldn't have come at. It was just the most opportune time when there was $100,000, and we got the tree nursery going, and we actually had funds left over for a John Deere backhoe, if I remember right. So where are we with transplanting? I know this is slightly off topic, but not terribly. Transplanting some of those trees on Berkshire Street, Yanni. Are we getting those out to the public? Those trees are getting kind of mature, so I want to. I know we're going to take an inventory now. That's all well and good about an inventory, and we're going to do historic tours. That's all well and good too. But I'm much more interested in getting the trees out of Berkshire Street and getting planted somewhere. So
yeah, absolutely. I was there this morning. I've set up a program on the conservation website. We're helping get these to plant with homeowners. I just dropped off 4 trees today. In fact, this morning, there's about 125 left. I've talked with Mike McManus. We've been talking about maybe scheduling a tree planting at Kennedy Park, something like a community event.
oh, great.
We are moving them out, but I think it needs to be part of the broader plan for urban forestry in Holyoke in general.
It does. So I'm just going to give you a couple of small suggestions. One is you can contact the manager of the gas and electric. I'm sure he would be happy to promote that as often as you request in his monthly newsletter, which the multiple bills I get, I always read the newsletter and on or before paying my electric bill, Joe. And then I would also recommend that there's a few areas of the city that certainly have a lot of asphalt. The Holyoke Mall comes right to mind, but there are others, and they might be ready sources for free trees. because the trees can go anywhere. The trees that the city has, not necessarily DCR trees, they're restricted by, well, whatever it is, whatever the code is. Yeah, they're restricted. But city trees are not restricted. They can go anywhere we want. And it would be great to get them out and get it promoted. And I'm sure that on the website you're doing what you can, but we've got to, we got some pretty mature trees, and I'd like to get those out and about. And then the last thing is you can certainly coordinate that with the DCR crew. I mean, there's such a hardworking group of people, and they're really dedicated to their profession. And I mean, they've done canvassing in neighborhoods. They just really go above and beyond. I think that I would never imagine that they do that, but there's so much great work happens. Maybe even the gas and electric would like it, because they've got a lot of areas that maybe that are open space even, and maybe they could use the trees for screening and for whatever reason. So I certainly want to hear more about that, Yanni, and I hope you'll give at least me, give me some feedback, but hopefully you'll send a communication to the full council on the trees that we have at Bircher Street and on this grant. Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. So if I understand this correctly, Yoni, this grant is strictly for planning. There's nothing for actual physical work here, correct?
That's correct. These will be planning tools and data in the form of the tree inventory.
Yeah. So in doing this tree inventory and all this planning, right now we have a huge list of dead and dangerous trees. And in my opinion, we're bringing more and more of those onto the list than we're dealing with every year. Is there some way in this plan, two things? Number one, that we could incorporate not only planting new trees, but incorporating a plan where, as we're removing dead trees and replacing them with new trees, not just planting new trees all over wherever people request, and making that part of the broader plan, how we go about addressing this. And in applying for all these grants, it's hard to believe, planning, but isn't there anything where we can get some physical work done to take care of, what's really a bad problem in the city right now? And I mean, it'd be great to replace these trees and not just take them down, but some of these, we've got to start doing something about this. And could we be writing for grants to do some of this work also? It's way out of what we're able to budget that I've seen over the last 5 years on the council.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the plan would definitely address trees at all stages of life and removal. And I actually completely agree with you. It's been really challenging. This is like a common discussion in our fields, that it's really difficult to find funding for tree maintenance. A lot of funders they seem to think that's something cities should be able to handle on their own. One part of the grant that we didn't get awarded, I asked for funds to treat the ash trees on Elm Street to keep emerald ash borer from infecting them. We know emerald ash borers in Holyoke and could take them out in short order. And even that, I made a strong argument for environmental justice, and that was actually cut from the grant. Even when there was like a strong argument to tie it all together. So I feel your frustrations. I'm right there with you. I can say the good news is a lot of us have been talking with Bob O'Connor about this at the DCR in the discussions about the Resilient Lands Initiative. This is something to keep an eye on. It's going to be coming down the pipeline. And one of the 8 central areas they're going to be focusing on for resilience and land conservation is urban forestry. And a number of us have made it very clear we need some practical grants. We need municipal funds for staffing and tree removal or equipment. So, I hear the planning fatigue concern, And I also think this is going to poise us really well for when those start to roll out in the next few years.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. I hope also in developing this plan, it's a lot of money to come up with a good plan. It's not just the canopy itself, it's what goes on underground in the selection of the trees and also in the selection of where we are planting them with root systems getting into, I'm looking here, stormwater problems and localized flooding. And here we have tremendous problems in Holyoke already with an aging underground infrastructure. To be planting that part of this planning is to make sure that they're being put in places that won't affect our sewer system, our water system, and our overhead electrical transmission lines and stuff too. I hope this is all stuff that can be included in it. I don't see it specifically here, but I hope it's taken into consideration.
Yeah, of course, I'm right there with you.
Okay. That's it for me, Joe.
Thank you, Councilor. Yanni, one question from me. On the historic list of historic trees, I guess is what you're looking at. Is the horse banana tree part of that?
Horse banana?
Do you know what a horse banana tree is in Holyoke? Does anybody know what a horse banana tree is? Mike Sullivan does. A catalpa tree.
You got me on this one, Joe. I'm not going.
All right, we better go back to the history books on that. Any further questions for our conservation officer? Is there a motion?
Motion to accept the provisions of the MVP action grant.
Second it.
Motion made and seconded to accept the provisions of the grant and to allow it to be spent accordingly. We will refer our vote to the full city council next week to take a final action. On that motion, if there's no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Raise your hand. All those opposed, we are unanimous. Thank you, Yanni. Appreciate you being with us.
Have a good night, Yanni.
Number 9.
If we go to number 9, we have our city treasurer with us. A motion to take it off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Financial transfer is $8,500 from the assistant treasurer to professional services. Sandy, thank you for being patient. Could you run us through the request for this transfer? Why there's surplus and why it's going into the line item you're proposing?
Well, hello, everybody. Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse tonight. In July, unfortunately, my assistant left the position, and I need somebody in my office at the moment to come in and bring my bank statements up to date for the outside auditors. During this transition, I feel at the time I'd be better off to get an outsider to come in, bring me up to date on the bank statements, and then try to look for a new assistant.
Okay, are you in the process of looking now?
I have, but to be honest with you, an assistant to the city treasurer has a lot of responsibilities, as you know. According to the ordinance, if the treasurer is not in the office, then the assistant takes over, and it takes time to trust that person and to train. And I feel if I dedicate my time to trying to train an assistant right now and not have an outside person come in, I'm going to be behind on things that need to be done for the outside auditor so we can get the 2020 year done.
Understood. Understood. Two separate things. Any questions from the committee? Sandy, I didn't put you on number 9. I think you have to blame Ryan. He should have put you on number 1. That was quick.
I know, that was quick and easy, but that's okay. I like watching you guys.
Well, we enjoy your company.
I am looking forward, though, to having you guys come back and do live meetings. I think it would be a lot easier.
We are live. We're just not in the chamber.
I know, but you're not in the city hall sitting at the round table and being able to shuffle your papers and find things.
We believe me, we all missed it a lot. As you can tell by this evening, this can be difficult, but
We're still shuffling.
Sandy, you can't see me, but I am in the city council chambers.
Jimmy's down there.
I noticed your background. You're dedicated, Jimmy.
All right, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the transfer?
Second.
Second.
Motion made second to approve the transfer. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Sandy. Have a good
That
night.
leaves us with item number 1 and 2. Item 2 is going to remain on the table. I did just get an email during this meeting from Maria Pagan. She is unavailable to make it this evening. It's not Maria's fault. It's a late notice. We were going under, for some reason, we were led to believe that this was from the schools, even though it's part of the library. Our fault, Maria. I don't know if you're listening, but we will get it as soon as possible. So you
Motion
can
to take one off the table?
start using.
Second.
Motion to take item 1 off the table. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This was laid on the table at our last finance committee meeting. So this is a follow-up on what is known as the Masstrails Connecticut River Valley Project. With us right now is Marcus Marrero, Bob Parent, and Mike McManus from the DPW. Unfortunately, one of the reasons we tabled it was Councilor Murphy had a lot of concerns about the impact, especially the impact, if I remember correctly, on parking on Main Street in Ward 2, right from the Jones Ferry all the ways down to Springdale Park. His concerns were about parking, and he wanted to do some research and some talking to constituents. I did have a conversation with Councilor Murphy last night when he told me that he had this other conflict meeting, and he felt he would get here within an hour or so after we started our meeting. I told him we would do all the other items first before we went back and visited this item. So with that in mind, Marcus, did you want to update us on anything that Councilor Murphy was concerned about?
Sure. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Murphy got back to us some days ago, sharing with us that he had surveyed the corridor and count. I don't have the exact numbers, but he kind of broke them down in sections where he saw cars being parked, where he saw areas that often people would park on the corridor of Main Street, and just stating that he didn't see how eliminating parking would how it wouldn't be possible to eliminate parking, or how detrimental it would be to eliminate parking. I shared my thoughts. Of course, valuable perspective. It's something that that we understand that may have an impact, and that's why you do feasibility studies, right? To understand what your options would be to minimize impact, or avoid any desirable impact. We understand that there have been concerns on that corridor of Main Street, just going down to Springfield, where speed is something that wants to be reduced. You know, if we want to do something to change the infrastructure there with curb cuts, or something called a chicane, right? Having the street curve to reduce speeds. You know, often you do the same stuff that we would be doing here, doing a survey of the corridor, having cross sections of the corridor with different options on what it would look like, whether you have parking shifted in certain ways, or you have bike lane or trail in this case, that we would be as a principal examination, and you start looking what permitting would look like for that. What would it look like to capitalize a project on that? This project would not commit us to anything. And in fact, anything that comes out as a recommendation still would have to be city council. City council approves how the street is laid out. So if the council says there's parking there, then we have to provide for parking. So we don't, you know, from our standpoint, we don't see a downside in that it's not with anything, but a lot of what we would need one way or another, this pays for this pays for in that feasibility study. So we understand the concern. We that's part of the scope of what we would look at, but we're not headed in a direction of creating an impact. This is about gathering information.
Marcus, that's a good point. One of Councilor Murphy's concerns was that there is a matching part to this grant. And I believe, where's that coming from? Remind us how much it is.
Yeah, that would be coming from my budget, from contracted services. If you'll remember back at budget time, when I was asked what is contracted services used for, it's this type of stuff. It's to leverage. You know, I would get to leverage a dollar 4 times over, right? So the state would be paying for that kind of stuff. So we can use that money if we need an additional.
And is it a dollar for dollar match?
No. It's so we're matching $10,000 to the state's 40,000.
Okay, thank you. I had that in my notes. I just didn't have it in front of me. But thank you. Bob or Mike, would you like to weigh anything in?
I would just add that I'm aware that there are concerns regarding speeding on that section of Main Street, and the goal of this project, a successful project, would be to try to identify a way to address not only the shared use path or the bike lane potential, but also address that problem. And the reality is, if we are not willing to consider making any changes, and I'm not going to guess what those changes are because the study hasn't been done. But if we aren't ready to make any changes, the existing condition will continue exactly as it is. And if we're looking to try to address some of those issues, this may be an opportunity to help us identify potential solutions to those, as well as creating a trail or path along Main Street.
Bob, part of the language and discussion at the last meeting, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth here, but if I remember correctly, from West Springfield on, we were going to lose a lane, meaning on Main Street, it would be losing the parking lane, or is it just readjusting the parking lane?
I was I think I misled the committee the last time around because I talked about dropping a lane all the way along Riverdale. It's not all the way along Riverdale that Mass DOT, as part of their project, is proposing, but it's picking up at Highland Ave up to Main Street in Ingleside, where their transportation term is they're proposing what's called a road diet. Basically, again, to address some of these concerns, speeding and other things, they're intentionally looking to make the road narrower to address the concerns and at the same time to try to create some other opportunities that don't currently exist. So that dropping of a lane is from Highland up into Holyoke up to Main Street in Ingleside that they are proposing as part of their 25% design.
So there will continue to be a parking lane on Main Street?
Again, we haven't done the feasibility study, so I'm staying a long way away from trying to say what will or won't happen. That we'll take a look at options. A solution may involve some sort of a hybrid solution. Perhaps, as an example, you might lose some spaces in some places, so you could narrow the roadway down, put in bump outs, or do other types of things such that you would encourage drivers to slow down. Because right now, drivers speed in that section of Main Street because it's wide open, it's wide, you can park on both sides of it, and it feels very safe to drive at a high rate of speed. If things are shrunk down a bit, and again, I'm not going to say where and to what degree because we haven't done the study, it might help to encourage people to slow down and transition to a lower speed, something much closer to the posted speed. So the availability of parking is great, but it also helps to create the speeding problem.
Okay, I've been doing a little filibustering here for Councilor Murphy, who's about to join us.
Yep.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Jerry?
Yep.
Okay, thank you for joining us. And we know you had a conflict, and typically well, let's not worry about why we had a conflict, but typically we waited as long as we could. We just started talking about the Masstrails.
Yep.
Marcus and Bob have updated us that they've had some discussions with you. I reminded the committee and everybody what your concerns were, a big part of it being parking. Essentially what we just been told is this is a grant to do the study. It's not no final vote on what would be the outcome of a project. If the project would go forward, it would take another vote from the city council. That's essentially where we are. Would you like to start now, or is there other committee members that have questions who have been listening or thoughts?
I'll defer, and then when they're done, I'll
Okay,
offer my
right now
thought.
there's no other hands up. So if I believe the committee was waiting for you to share your concerns and your findings since the last meeting.
Okay. So, you know, I've gone around probably half a dozen times. I sent Marcos some information about number of cars. Tonight I counted 45 cars that were on the east side of Main Street. So I did get a communication from Marcos, I think this morning or this afternoon, which I haven't had a chance to answer, but indicating that it wasn't something that was mandatory, that if we do this, if we approve it. My only question is, I think it's a $10,000 match, right?
Correct.
And I guess my question is, based on what I'm seeing and the idea of what I've heard, it seems to me that, like, why would we spend 10,000? Marcos indicated that if we don't do this, we're going to be left out of doing other things. And if I can get that explained to me a little better, I might appreciate that. I really don't see how we can successfully eliminate parking on the east side of Main Street and not create far more serious safety issues than we already have. But I mean, again, if the idea is that we need to do this in order to get a chance to get other grant money, then if I can hear that would, and again, the idea that we aren't doing this, even if we approve this, we're not saying we're going along with the bike lane from Jones Ferry to Jet Days Landing.
Yeah, so if the chair wants me to address, I can.
Marcus, yes, please.
So yeah, that's absolutely right. We're not committed to anything by accepting this grant. It is what it is. It's a feasibility study, and feasibility study can tell you what you're looking at is a bad idea, and that's why we do the feasibility studies. Should it reveal options that are desirable by the community?
I'm having a hard time hearing. Is there something else out there? I'm having a hard time.
I can't figure out. There's some background noise. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Ryan, can you tell? If anybody's not muted, could you just mute just in case? It's very light, but we can hear it. Thank you.
So if the feasibility study does show desirable outcomes to city leadership, then it would allow us to pursue other grant monies. One that is pretty common with this kind of stuff is trying to get the project on the Transportation Improvement Program, on the TIP. That's a large funding source for regional transportation projects. I believe it's 80% federal money, 20% state money. That's how we've gotten us and most of our neighbors. That's how we fund most large projects. It's through the TIP. Sometimes MassWorks. I'm not sure if it would be the best match here, but it all starts with having at least a conceptual design. In terms of parking, this is not a plan to eliminate parking. This is a plan to accomplish better transportation in the corridor. And at times that may mean, oh, we don't need these spaces for parking here because they're not used, or whether it's in this corridor and other places, you say, well, it's worth sacrificing X amount of parking spaces to achieve other goals. But that's not where we're starting. We're not saying this is a project that's intended to take out these 45 parking spaces. It's just, honestly, if we want to change any of the conditions on Main Street and the right of way, we're going to have to do a corridor survey. We're going to have to look at, all right, what is the latest and greatest in terms of the permitting that will be implied by each of these options, and having the cross sections at each one of the stations that says, okay, here it's narrower, here it's not, here there is parking. oh, there's a whole swath of parking that's never used here. Okay, how do we use that space? And so that, that costs money to pay engineers. But even if we wanted, Terry, I was saying, sorry that I was so informal, Councilor Murphy. I was saying before you.
Terry's fine. Terry's fine.
Oh, yeah.
I'll call you Marcos.
Well, that's fine. But anyway, even if we wanted to do something like a chicane where the street kind of like curves around so that vehicles aren't shooting down on a straight line. Any of these things will require us to do the basic information gathering that we're going to be doing with this grant. So having a feasibility study that says, this isn't the best place for a combined use trail, then it is what it is, right? Then we say, okay, so how else can we achieve some of the goals that we have for the corridor, whether it's for reducing speeds, for other bike or pedestrian accommodation, right? Is it slightly increasing the sidewalk length? Is it reducing a travel lane so that it's still safe, but it's reducing speeds? Whatever. Those are things that we can look at. And Bob mentioned, sometimes it's bump outs with some landscaping or trees that can create the same effect. So it doesn't have to be about eliminating parking. It'll be what, we have to look at the corridor.
Okay, so just to make sure I understand it. So if I'm hearing you correctly, we agree to this grant. We spend 10,000. They do a survey, and if the survey somehow says we're going to put bike lanes and it's going to eliminate parking, we just get to say no.
Well, so the survey doesn't say you have to or you don't. It'll for the surveying you have to have you're going to have for the whole corridor on at scale representation of the space. And then you're going to see how it is currently divided in terms of the sidewalk, where the curb is there any green space?
Yep.
Is there any part of the right of way that looks like private space but is actually right of way? Potentially what utilities that you have there, where you have parking, where's the center line, that kind of stuff. Then the engineers will start working on, based on the current conditions and the current usage patterns and the goals that we have, start playing with different setups to see what the options would look like. And so it's not automatically you do a survey and says you have to eliminate or not. There's a complexity of options that we have to think through, and so the feasibility study kind of gives you those options. It says, this option you may love, but it's really expensive. This option is cheaper, but it doesn't accomplish your goals. It eliminates parking, which you don't want as a goal. So you look at those trade-offs, and at the end of the day, we say, okay, how could we proceed on something? And Bob, if you want to talk a little bit more into specifics, talking generalities of engineering scopes. You're on mute, Bob.
That happened. Now I'm not. Okay. Again, the purpose of this study is to identify what the opportunities are. It's not to make any commitments to any one of those opportunities, really just to identify those so we can then help to make some decisions going forward in the future. If we decide to go nowhere beyond this study, we're done at that point. If we identify a solution or multiple solutions that address all of our goals or many of our goals, then we might choose to move forward with one of those. I'm going to say again, if we do nothing, the conditions will be exactly what they are there today. I'm certain that putting up speed signs and speed limits and other things aren't going to change the driver roadway behavior. And if we want to do that, we then need to make some changes of some type. And there may be some trade-offs, but I'm not going to guess. I'm not going to try to say what those trade-offs might be until we do the work.
Bob, are you saying that part of this feasibility study will give us possibly options of mitigating the traffic speed on Main Street?
Definitely. And Marcos talked about cross sections. Cross sections basically are defining how do we split the property that the city owns up, and what do we put in that property. And again, it may be big, wide travel lanes with big, wide parking spaces on both sides of the roadway, which is great from the parking standpoint, but it encourages high rates of speed. It may be narrowing down some of the lane widths. It may be putting in some medians. It may be doing some of the things that force drivers to change the way they interact with the roadway and effectively slow the speed down.
If we can slow down the speed on Main Street, it's worth a lot more than $10,000.
Right.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is important, and I understand Councilor Murphy's concerns, especially with parking, but I think the word we heard here earlier is having options, you know, to look at this. I mean, there's several areas in the city since I've been on the council that we've made changes with lanes, I think of Hamden Street, Dwight Street, North Pleasant, how they changed the makeup of the road and really had slowed down the traffic on those roadways. So I think it's important to take the money that we can, and as Marco said, the $10,000 out of his office, more or less. It's something that is an investment in our city and that area of the city that I think can be beneficial if it works. If we make the study and something doesn't look right or doesn't seem like we want to go along with it, we have that option to decline it. But I think looking at it and understanding that there are different segments of that roadway that can be changed possibly down the road would be beneficial to the city as a whole, from West Springfield right down, you know, to Main and Springdale. So I think it's something that we should look at. I think it's a good investment for that area, and it's something that we have to take everybody's, you know, all the councilors' concerns, especially the ward councilors' concerns, into play here. But I think it would be prudent for us to actually accept this grant and to see what we could do with that area of the city.
Is there any further discussion? Councilor Sullivan.
Yep. Hey, Marcos, you said the 10,000, the city match was going to come out of which line item?
There's a contracted services line item.
Okay. And I know we cut that on you. How much is that going to leave in the fund, and how much has been expended already?
I don't remember the specifics, but we last I checked, we had enough. If we needed a backup, I could probably cut other stuff in my budget and move it around. This is important, and it leverages a lot of money.
Right. Do you know how much this will leave in there?
I think it was 16 approved, and I haven't spent more than 6. So.
Okay. All right. That's my only question.
Any other, Councilor Barley?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to pose this for the same reasons I stated the last time we met on August 24th. The name of this grant, from what I understand it, is Masstrails Connecticut River Pathway. Now it's somehow morphing into this idea where we're gonna slow down traffic in an area that's been 2 lanes since Route 5 was created. Because Highland Avenue is at the Dunkin' Donuts where that jewelry shop is, and which is in West Side, but barely across the Holyoke line, going north. And so I just think the thought of this is almost meritless. And then to say an ancillary argument that, well, if we accept this, well, we might be eligible for TIF funding. I never heard that before, MassWorks funding, but we have MassWorks funding, we get TIF funding. So, I mean, that argument is kind of a Hail Mary pass, in my opinion. Let me give you another one. The $10,000 is $10,000. We've been in budget hearings where we've cut $250 and had roundtable debates. And now it's, hey, 10,000, so, hey, we'll just do it. But let me give you another argument. Holyoke needs economic development, and this is yet another, I don't know how to put this, unsolicited mission where we have Kmart Plaza void. We have the Lynch School area, and we have the other down by the old Pay Saver. That's like a dead zone. We just heard at the DGR meeting, Mr. Chairman, what a disaster High Street is. Because of all the other stuff going on at the last full city council meeting, which the president should be embarrassed how he ran that meeting. We didn't drill down that far in the High Street corridor that Councilor LeBron Martinez filed. So I only give it a bridge committee report, but we certainly had a deep dive into what a disaster High Street is. We had the OPED director saying the first 2/3 of High Street are what? A mess. I paraphrase, but I'm not much wrong in that. But let's go to Main Street. There is another area of Holyoke, the Main Street corridor. Once you cross, once we start heading into the downtown area, it's a disaster. And now we need this. We need another study led by the OPED director. Man, I know there's 100,000 balls in the air. I get it, but no. The Hail Mary passes. I'm over that. I'm over that stuff right now. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying this is my opinion on where this stuff is coming from now, Mr. Chairman. I don't get it. I'd rather focus our energy and our effort and our precious staff time when they are in City Hall. I'd rather focus that time on the aforementioned areas that we've had, and not to have yet another area where what I heard from the engineer, we're going to drop a lane, and then we're gonna narrow Main Street in Springdale. Come on. I mean, and for what? A bike trail that we can't hook up to unless we go that way, right up Route 5 by dropping a lane. No, I realize this is going to pass. I realize this is, my friend Jay Wellham always say, I didn't mind being 14-1 and being the one. So I don't mind being the 1 and the 12-1, but no, I can't vote for this, Mr. President. I get it's going to pass, but no, not Mr. Chairman. Sorry, but not this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm going to just weigh my 2 cents in, and I thank you, gentlemen. And I do share Councilor Murphy's concerns about the parking 100%, and I will not vote down the road for eliminating anything parking that doesn't, make sense in terms of this very important residential neighborhood. And there's more than one residential neighborhood that is involved here. It begins with a single family neighborhood that is, from the West Springfield line, if you really think about this, and I'm talking about down towards Providence Hospital, there are homes there, right through the Dean Tech itself. And then there's a more apartment buildings and residential rental, 2 families, as we get towards Springdale Park, all which demand on-street parking because of the age of these neighborhoods and the age of the city. However, that is not exactly what we're voting on this evening. I also see this as something that I worked on when I represented Ward 4 back in the 80s, when Beach Street was a complete disaster in terms of speed, in terms of traffic issues, and traffic mitigation was needed. The Beach Street project didn't eliminate the problem completely, but a project that took place under the state guidance helped us, change the whole scope of what was happening on Beach Street at the time. And again, did not eliminate all the problems, but it worked. And the mitigation stuff, is still to this day makes 202 a much safer street to travel. Main Street is not a safe street. We need to do something. It begins with a study. I think the $10,000 coupled with the $30,000 from the state, or is it $40,000 from the state? $40,000 from the state could come up with some answers as to how to mitigate the problems that we see on Main Street and to avoid future disasters. So I agree with Councilor Tallman. I will vote in favor of this, and I don't see any other hands. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, if I can just, again, when I first read this, everything that I read indicated to me that we were looking at bike paths. So that's where my first response was, as I read it, and it indicated that we were going to try to create space for people to have bikes on the east side of Main Street, which to me would have indicated that we were going to be eliminating parking. So if that is not what the grant is for, I'm more inclined to support it. But if that is the initial study, that whether we should be creating a bike lane, then I would have a problem with that. But I mean, there are traffic concerns, there are speeding concerns. You know, I've been trying to come up with other alternatives and options. I do think, and I just was out there today, and I had someone going by at Dean School where it says 20, they were going past 50. And, you know, so there are serious speeding concerns. There are concerns in terms of people being able to get in and out. But again, from the bike path area, or creating a path at Springdale Park that's bike, I just don't think that has any chance. If we were to make this a study of how we improve traffic flow and slow traffic down, and if that's the ultimate goal, then I'm okay with that. And I certainly would in favor of slowing traffic down. But I do think we need to recognize and make it very clear that putting a bike lane on the east side of Main Street will cause more problems and would have very few people using it, but would cause more problems because of taking away parking. I just had people that were at my house today, and they were all elderly people. If they had to park on the other side, they would have ended up having to park probably almost a street away. So, I mean, those are just the kind of things that, and then we'd have to try to cross against that traffic. So, again, I based on Marcus's comment that we need to do one to the other, assuming that's an accurate statement, you know, and understanding that if it comes out and they want to recommend bike lanes, that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. I can go along with it.
Thank
On the
you.
motion.
Councilor Tomlin, your hand is up. Are you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to adopt. Is there any further discussion? We have a show of hands. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, the motion carries 4-1. That recommendation will go to the full city council. Thank you, everybody.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. I see nothing else on our agenda. No one else here. We appreciate everybody's attendance and participation. On the motion to adjourn, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you again.